Today we're going to take this very basic lamp and apply some inspiration to it. I saw this beautiful dresser from Anthropologie. It's called the Enchantment, and what a beautiful name. That name is perfect for this dresser, and it is enchanting. And you know what? We're going to apply that same beautiful style to this lamp. And I was just like, wow, I can't wait to get started. So what I did is I got this lamp for free. I used some basic Rust-Oleum white primer just to give this thing a shot before I get started. And wow, it exposed chips. It exposed a massive crack. Turns out it's split all over the place, but you know, we're not going to let that bother us. First of all, I'm just going to paint some tight bond glue all along the cracks. I'm just going to run just a paintbrush seam all along, hopefully just to reinforce that crack. I think when we apply our clay molded flowers on top of it, it's going to just give us the strength and structure to basically repair the lamp. And I got a brand new silicone mold I'm really excited to try out. It's called Blossom Time by Redesign. When you're using your silicone mold, always apply cornstarch. So in between each flower that you press in, just add more cornstarch. You need to, as absolutely necessary, or it will stick. So I bought this very inexpensive modeling clay from Dollarama. And I would suggest it's not very durable. So for a project like a lamp, it's good, but never use something like this on furniture. So just press a small amount of clay into the mold and just press firmly just to get a really good impression and remove the excess. Now I have a little tip here. I like a very flat back so you have a good application to your surface. So I use a silicone spatula and I just drag it across the back and it makes it really nice and level. And as you can see here, when you use a good amount of cornstarch, it just pops out of the mold, no problem. So I just used a paintbrush to apply the tight bond glue. I just wanted to make sure the entire back of the clay mold was covered just so that we have good adhesion to the project. So I pretty much applied each molded flower as I went along and applied it to where that crack was on my jar. That was determining my design right away. Basically, I wanted to use it as a patch. I was very liberal with the glue too, just really wanted good adhesion on the project. So I'd recommend just sort of having a meandering style across the vase. I had no specific pattern. I just wanted it to look like rambling roses. Basically, to start with though, my primary goal was to go along the crack seam, just to use that as a patch. So don't be constrained by any particular pattern. Use your imagination. Just have a very free flowing and meandering. I think it looks more natural, more beautiful, the more wavy your lines are of the rows of flowers. And about after every 3 to 4 times you use the mold, you have to wash it. I just found that inevitable that you will get some clay stuck in there, and in order to unmold it properly, you have to wash it every 3 or 4 times you use it. Take your time and press firmly all around each flower. If you don't get a good connection, it will lift slightly and then you'll have some gaps in your project. I learned this the hard way, and you will sometimes get those little gaps if you don't get good connection. You can put little bits of clay and push it in there, use a little tool, scrape it into the little cracks, and it can be filled. So it's not tragic, but it does make extra work for you. As I'm working, I'm reflecting back at that Anthropologie enchantment dresser, and that's my inspiration, and I hope to reflect that in this piece. I hope everyone that's watching today will hit a little flower emoji in the comment section below. Hopefully you were enchanted by the video today, and let's just fill up the comment section with flowers. And of course, we certainly appreciate your support by hitting the subscribe button. Look forward to many more inspirational videos to come. And I'm just covering up one more chip in the lamp. then after I get about 10, 12 flowers put down, I started painting. I hear painting keeps the flowers from cracking, so I'm putting a fairly heavy coat of paint on top. For the rest of the body of the lamp, I'm just painting X's so I get a more rustic finish. So I continue to put down 10, 12 flowers at a time, then I put on another coat of paint, and then I go back to the set I had done originally and I add another coat there. And it took about, I'd say, 4 to 5 coats of paint to cover those clay flowers. I'd highly recommend using a white paper clay base rather than this dark natural clay. It just would be so much easier to cover, especially when you're painting white. So my painting method did not save me from cracks. I spent a considerable amount of time going back and filling pretty much every flower in. I just pushed in some clay into the crack and smoothed it out. While we're waiting for paint to dry, we're going to start on the lamp shade. We need something beautiful to go with our lamp. We're going to make this really pretty flower lamp shade. And this is from Pier 1, and I'm just going to copy it. I actually own this lamp already, and I just think this will be really pretty, so we're going to give it a go. And Walmart happens to carry the exact same linen fabric. Also, you could use drop sheet if you had that available as well. I measured each layer of flowers, so the base layer is 6.5 inches, the middle layer 5.5 inches, and the center is 3 inches. I tried to trace the flowers. It wasn't the easiest thing. It's very loose. It's not like a tight shape. So you can see my pattern, that if you want to call it that there, and it's very loose, basically 5-point flowers. So I had this large lamp shade in the garage, and it was free. I pick up stuff for free. I'm not ashamed to say it because I'm going to recycle it and use it, and you'll be amazed, I think, by what it looks like in the end. So I start off by just taking off the outer layer. And after thinking about it, I'm thinking, why didn't I leave that layer on there and just put the flowers on top? I think it would have worked great, and I regret it. So now I have to make it a bit of extra work for myself by recovering it. But if you have one, I suggest give it a go. I'd be so curious to see what it would look like. Leaving the base layer on and just adding the flowers. So I know, what a horrible shade. I'm just like, what did I do? But don't worry, we're going to fix this. So I just laid out the fabric, and now I'm going to cut a pattern. So set the shade down on the seam so you have a starting point, and just mark where you're starting. And then just draw a line about 1/2 inch to 1 inch away from the edge of the lamp itself, just to leave a little allowance so that you can fold that part in afterwards. And then just cut it out and press it. And this is the basic shape that we're working with. I was kind of curious how many flowers to make, so I just laid them down to see. In the end, I needed one more flower because when you pinch it together with the glue, they kind of shrink a little bit. So I did make one more. I use this 3M Super 77 spray glue, and it's amazing. There's no product endorsement here, but boy, that stuff's amazing, and I'm so glad I bought it. Best thing ever. So just take it outside and spray one whole side and pay particular attention to all the edges. And then on one edge only, just fold it over like a little seam, and it will stick really nicely for you. You make a little mistake, you can always lift it and repress it down, and it re-sticks all over again, no problem. So on the opposite end from your little seam that you just folded, lay down the lampshade on the seam. It's just a good starting point. And then press it down on the inside and just kind of roll along the fabric, pressing firmly just on that one spot to adhere the fabric to the outside. And when I got to the end, I noticed it wasn't sticking where that seam was because it didn't have glue there. So I actually pulled it back. I went outside, I gave it a little shot of spray and then repressed it down, and it worked great. And then just fold up the end all the way around. Just kind of go straight up. And like I said, if you make a little mistake or there's a pucker, just re-lift it. You can set it down again and it will stick again, no problem. So I didn't roll it exactly even, so I just went back and trimmed the excess off. And once one end is folded in, just flip it around and fold in the other side. And that's how you recover a lampshade. It was actually really easy. First time I did it. And not bad. So let's get started making some flowers. That was the finished product, so let's make them. I cut out from that pattern, there's 3 pieces, the 6.5, the 5.5, and the 3-inch piece. The 2 larger ones are basically a 5-point flower, and the center, it's more of a triangle loosely, or a 3-leaf clover shape. Now my inspiration piece had really frayed edges around the flower. I kind of gave it a little rustic charm. You can see when you cut it, it looks pretty good. It's not frayed yet, so I have a little secret on how I did it. So I used a nail brush and I just held it down firmly and I just scrubbed it. Just go crazy. Scrub the edges all the way around, and it frays it up really nice. Just kind of keep going, hold it down firmly and go back and forth, and then brush away, back and forth, brush away, pretty much any direction you can do. Just go around the entire flower and just scrub the heck out of it. And here and there, you're going to get a few longer shreds of material. So I just used a scissor and I just cut off the kind of extra long bits because I didn't want loose threads hanging down. Now let's just form the little petals, the little flower shape, by putting a little hot glue in the center. So I put in about ½ inch of strip of glue in the center in a nice line, then bend the flower over, press it down. Now, this fabric was heavy enough that it didn't burn me or anything, but it could be very different with the kind of material you're using. So be careful. So I made 3 or 4 little pleats in the center of the flower. Just kind of turn the direction, put in about a ½ inch strip and pinch it. So the more you put in, the more you pinch it in the center and kind of pinch it in little lines, and it kind of makes petals stand up a little bit. So we do this to each layer. Again, little ½ inch strip of glue, fold it over, give it a pinch until it's set, and then put in another little ½ inch strip, fold it over, give it a little pinch from the back. So on the first 2 layers, you put 3 or 4 little pinchy little pleats in it. And then move on to the centerpiece, and that one I would put in 2 at the most 3 little pleats in the center. It's more like putting in a little dab of glue and giving a little squish in the middle. So let's assemble our flower. So I go to the base layer, put a little dab of hot glue in the center, and kind of off-center the flowers so they're not identical, the petals on each layer. And then put some hot glue on the underneath, set it down, press it down, and that's pretty much it. Now let's add a rhinestone to the center. And I think I got these at Dollarama, and I just used the large rhinestone. And it's easier not to get burnt if you put the hot glue on the flower itself and then just set the rhinestone down on the flower. The number of flowers needed is totally dependent on the size of your shade. Mine needed 9. So I just did a rough layout just to ensure I had enough flowers. Then I ran outside with my 3M spray adhesive and sprayed the back of the flower, and then came back in the house and attached it. So I just ran in and out of the house a few times. And I just lined up the bottom of each flower with the bottom of the shade. The 3M adhesive really sticks very, very well. I can't say enough good things about it. Loved using it. Super easy. Give it a little shot. Attach it. It worked great. I felt that our Anthropologie enchantment dresser was inspirational. I loved my little lamp. and I thought it needed a very special lampshade to go with it. Now I had some feedback from family. They thought maybe just a plain shade would be better, just to highlight the beautiful base. But between you and me, I'm loving the shade. I love the flowers. I think it goes great with it. So my paint is dry. Now I'm going to put a protective top coat on, and I use this matte clear. So I applied one coat, I let it dry for half an hour, then I applied a second coat. So here it is, and I think it is enchanting. Don't you love it? I really do. First of all, I'd like you to see all the flowers on the base and how the flowers just kind of meander around on the base. No particular style, just very loose, natural look. So what do you think? Do you like it with the plain shade, or do you think it needs something special like the one with the flowers that we just made? Put your comments below and let me know. Well, I think this is one of my favorite projects to date. I think it looks classy and utterly enchanting. I'd love to hear what you think. Please put your comments below. Love to hear your feedback. I hope you're also encouraged and hopefully inspired to give it a try.